Good morning, everyone. It's Monday morning. Unfortunately, we're reflecting on a Celtic defeat, Ryan. But how are you feeling? Sometimes after a defeat, Ryan, I'm really down and despondent. Sometimes it goes so far in the other direction that I kind of push through it, and I have almost a gallows humour about it all. And I'm feeling okay this morning, despite feeling pretty down about Celtic in general. How are you on this fine Monday morning?
I'm the opposite.
Oh
Unfortunately, I'm
dear.
feeling pretty
Oh
down and
no.
despondent after. I was right after the game,
Yeah.
and it got worse as the night went on. To be honest, if you just thinking about the game, such a weird game, and I'm sure we'll go over, and I know you've been on a couple, so you don't want to repeat yourself too much. I'll give my opinion on how the way I saw things
Yeah.
going yesterday, or how things transpired yesterday. A very difficult one to go over because there's so many different parts to it, but we'll get into it.
Yeah. So Ryan, my first question to you is based on the back of what Martin O'Neill said yesterday post-match. He said, "We're far from finished with regard to this title race." He says, "I've said to you every single week here domestically anyway, that it's a tough ask for us, but we're still there fighting." He says it's not over yet. My question to you, Ryan, is the title race over? Can you see Celtic coming back from here at this point? What is the hope left within you? Give us all a way forward to believe in Celtic here.
I'm looking for one myself before I give other people some hope. I'd love to be on this show this morning, being optimistic about Celtic, but in my personal opinion, and I can only give my personal opinion to this, I am not confident that this team will see it through. Yesterday was just abject. It was really. To be fair, I want to caveat that ever so slightly. The result was abject. I actually thought that Celtic played okay for large elements of the game. They were up until the red card. They were the dominant force in the game. I know they went behind. They got their equaliser shortly before half time. They were the team that looked as if they were pushing forward. It was the red card comes from a Celtic corner, and Celtic are going to put the ball into the box, and instead they've got a man sent off. They put the ball into the box, and then all of a sudden the game changes. Just that, I was talking to people that I go to the game with yesterday. The amount of things that have happened this season, the amount of events that have happened, it's incredible to think that, the AGM, Wilfred Nancy, Brendan Rodgers. This is all the same season. It's been a long old season. We're getting into the business end of it, and at this moment in time, I just do not have the confidence that Celtic are going to come out on top compared to what they're up against. Unfortunately, that's just my personal opinion. I'd love to sit here in a couple of months' time and say they proved me wrong, but at this moment in time, just looking at the league table, the way that Celtic are going through games at the moment, I'm not feeling confident at all, unfortunately.
Henrik McLaughlin, hello to everyone in the live chat, by the way. We're looking for live chats, questions and comments today, so anyone in the live chat has anything to say or anything to impart or any question to ask us, we'd really appreciate it. It would help us out this morning. Henrik McLaughlin saying, "I know it's over by the Smiths. We could start a playlist of Celtic's title race if everyone wants." I would probably go more along the lines of "Please, please, please let me get what I want." That's probably the Smiths song I would go with this morning.
I think I'm on Panic at the moment.
Okay, Panic's a good one as well. We could probably start a playlist of just Smith songs. If anyone wants to do that, feel free to fire them in. I think the feeling is, I always trying to find hope and optimism and everything. Ryan, it's been a little bit of a struggle for me over the last 24 hours, I have to say, because just on the evidence so far this season, I think when you've lost 7 matches in the Scottish Premiership already, it's not exactly title winning form, regardless of how this plays out from here. It's a really difficult situation that we find ourselves in. Just on the performance yesterday, felt Celtic had a lot of pressure in the game, Ryan, but without really a massive amount of clear-cut opportunities. I think Thomas Chanchara had one, but only 3 shots on target, Ryan, which tells a story. So while I do think Celtic had pretty good urgency at points in the game, especially after Hibs scored in the first half, first 10 minutes of the second half, just again, the lack of quality and cutting edge in this team, Ryan, and that's been apparent all season. It just keeps cropping up again. No matter what belief or kind of the hope we get from last minute winners or the confidence that we get from Martin O'Neill, for me, it just keeps coming back to this lack of quality and cutting edge in this final third for me.
Yeah, in the forward areas, look who scored the goal for Celtic yesterday. A midfielder, again, bailing Celtic out, whose goal record is brilliant this season. Where would Celtic be without Benjamin Negron's goal? I dread to think where they would be without his goals. Granted, that didn't have a say on the result yesterday, because obviously Celtic lost the game, so it doesn't directly impact points differentials or that, but where would they be without Negron's goal tally this season, and a couple of other players stepping up? Listen, Celtic have got a bluntness up front, and it's been apparent all season. There was a tweet going about yesterday that in terms of the fully fledged centre forwards this season, Kelechi Iheanacho's the top goal scorer with 3, the only out and out striker. Maeda plays on the left but can also play through the middle. Kelechi Iheanacho's leading the goal charts in terms of an actual striker with 3. That's it's not title winning numbers. Celtic need, as much as Brendan Rodgers was making the points earlier on in the season that he liked the fact that goals were coming from everywhere. I think the hallmark of a decent Celtic side comes at both ends. A good goalkeeper and a good player, a good striker up front who can put the ball in the back of the net. And at this moment in time, they don't have that on either side. And then they've got a whole other problem in the midfield. So you add that, plus problems in defence. There's so many problem areas for Celtic at the moment. They struggled in the sort of so-called easier games against Livingston and Kilmarnock. A better side came to Celtic Park and Hibs. And yes, I know that Celtic went down to 10 men, but they still had to go up and score, and they did. Celtic were punished by a better team than what they have been facing in recent weeks domestically. And I mean, I've watched the winner that Hibs have scored about 5 or 6 times. I don't know why I've put myself through it, to be honest, but I wanted to see how it all happened. It was slow motion. It was like one of those goals. I've seen this goal happen from Celtic a lot of times this season, where you know what's coming. It doesn't seem as if Celtic can stop it, but it happens so slowly. From the ricochet in the midfield, from the tackle, I think it was Hatate that made the tackle. It goes into the middle. The ball somehow magically finds the midfielder, the Hibs midfielder, ricochets, and then it finds the other guy in the box, and it's a good finish from the player, but it's just so weak from Celtic. Celtic are weak in areas, and their weakness was found out yesterday. It's been found out in a lot of games recently, but it really cost Celtic yesterday.
Hazel Finn asking, where is Iheanacho and Mvuka? Just what do you think is going on with Iheanacho? We didn't really get any update on that yesterday, unfortunately. Hazel, he came on as a substitute against Stuttgart, so I was kind of expecting him to see involved in some capacity on Sunday, not in the match squad. Bit of an odd one that. I hope he's not picked up another problem, Ryan. A lot of people like Iheanacho. Obviously, when he's fit, I think he's been a fairly decent contributor. It's a bit worrying we've not had really anything out of him for months now, it seems like, Ryan. So, I'm just trying to think of what is the likelihood of getting someone out of Iheanacho in the latter months of the season. Not great from my perspective, just from the outside looking in here.
No, the sort of injury form sheet would tell you that he'll have a couple of games and then he'll get injured again. Unfortunately, his body just cannot sustain a long period of time without picking up a hamstring injury. I remember he played against St Mirren in the League Cup final, and he pulled his hamstring, and that was him out for a good amount of time. Yes, he's had good moments, but I don't think he's the answer either. I don't know who's the answer at the moment when it comes to Celtic. I'm kind of clutching at straws when it comes to different players. I was hoping that Junior Adamu would make more of an impact than what he has done. He scored that back heel against Dundee, which was an incredible moment from him. But instead, Martin O'Neill opts to go for Dyson Maeda through the middle. I think there needs to be a wider conversation about Dyson Maeda. I think he's getting away with a lot at the moment. Maybe not everything. Maybe some supporters are noticing the way that he's playing. I just thought that Celtic hurt themselves yesterday by taking off. And I know Chavanchara wasn't having his best game, but Celtic were worse when he came off the park. I think they lost any sharpness up front.
And maybe you would have wanted to see Junior Adamu in that moment rather than Dyson Maeda coming on in that moment. Listen, and a lot of people talking about the substitutes yesterday. it's not one of those ones where I can see a logic in basically all of them that he made. It's not one of those ones where I'm completely at a loss with the decisions Martin O'Neill has made. But at the same time, I think Daisy Maeda coming on, I wasn't expecting much from Daisy Maeda, and I don't think we got much out of him, which is kind of sums up where we are, unfortunately. Hazel also asked about Joel and Vuka. I do have an answer on that from Martin O'Neill yesterday. Josh asked about Joel and Vuka. Josh asked, left out the squad again today, is he still building up to be available? Martin O'Neill responded, I think it's just getting used to the environment. These lads have played decent grades of football before, but it's the intensity here at this minute, and some players like James Forrest have been used to that sort of intensity. So we'll see. We'll definitely make a few changes for Thursday evening, and we'll take it from there. But of course, we won't see Joel and Vuka on Thursday. He's not registered for the European squad. It's going to be much rotated though on Thursday. How are you feeling about the Joel and Vuka thing, Ryan? Again, just another sign of perhaps dysfunction at Celtic, transfer dysfunction. I'm not getting great vibes of this signing. Martin O'Neill said a couple of times that you'll still be used at some point in this run-in, but we were hoping for an impact at the right wing position, and there hasn't been that. Like, objectively, hasn't been that.
Thank goodness Celtic didn't sign him permanently. Thank goodness they got him on loan. Could you imagine this situation? It would have been like another Balikwisha, where they've got a player they've spent a good amount of money for. Yes, they would have spent less than what they spent on Balikwisha, 3 million to 5 million, in terms of Mvuka and Balikwisha. But there's been problems with this signing ever since those problems were flagged up, and he's medical. It seems he had that 45 minutes against Dundee, and we've not seen him since. It's all well and good, Martin O'Neill saying he's getting up to speed. He's only on a 6-month loan. What good is that? He's got to have an immediate impact, like some of the players who have came in. Granted, maybe they could have had more of an impact. Chivancha has impacted a few games. It just wasn't his best game yesterday. Junior Adamu had that initial impact against Dundee, but we've not really seen him that much since. I mean, he played 45 minutes against Kilmarnock, didn't really do much, and was hooked at half time. It was nice to see, albeit in poor circumstances, Benjamin Arthur taken to the field yesterday. First glimpse of him. In Vuka, I did have my doubts even when those irregularities did come up in his medical. I had my doubts on that. Is this really the sort of player that Celtic should be pushing for? And Martin O'Neill, I mean, it's clear. If he was doing enough, then he would be in the team, because it's not as if anybody's really making that position their own in the right wing area. It's Tenetki's doing okay on the other side, but Yang comes and goes with his form. That position's up there. It's up for grabs. That's the reason why Celtic brought in a player in the right wing in January. So the fact that he isn't even making match day squads, and there doesn't seem to be any injury problems, is concerning for me.
Mark Fairfield saying, I think the conversation should be about the management. The team selection is baffling. I guess I'd like you to follow up on that, Mark, if you can, or anyone else in the chat. I didn't particularly have massive issues with the team that was picked yesterday, and I honestly can't really think of anyone who would have come into that 11 based on the squad that Celtic have at the moment that would have materially changed that performance. That's just how I'm brutally looking at that squad and the options. And yeah, I know it's frustrating that we're not seeing some players, but we're not seeing them for a reason. I don't think there's any. I don't think Martin O'Neill's playing favourites with anyone particularly. You could argue Kasper Schmeichel to an extent, although I think he's going to be more. He's going to try and stay with the goalkeeper as much as possible. That just seems to be how Martin O'Neill's wired. I would personally, I think it's probably time for Kasper Schmeichel to come out of the team, although he wasn't the issue yesterday. He was against Stuttgart, and I think there might be more mistakes left in him there. But Ryan, can you think of any major changes to that team selection yesterday that you would have used? Would you maybe have seen Luke McCowan in the midfield? But again, not an ideal option.
Not an ideal option. I don't think he's the answer long term either, but that's just the situation that Celtic are in. I can say that about a lot of the players that are really getting into the team by default. I would hope next season that there's real pressure on those positions so that they're not automatic first picks in the team because of the strength of the team and the squad depth as well. I made the point, when I was travelling into the game with my family, I was saying that's probably the team that I would have picked for today. You know, Benjamin Negron providing a goal threat from midfield. Need to see a little bit more from him, or a lot more from him in terms of his overall play. Can't just be popping up with goals. He needs to actually be a midfielder rather than just another forward that ghosts his way into the box. Didn't really see that too much again yesterday, which was disappointing. But apart from that, you know, the defence I thought picked itself, apart from maybe bringing Sriracha in, but I was fine with Tierney coming in, and that decision was vindicated with the assist for Benjamin Negron's equaliser on the day. He can bring that quality. The forward line, I wanted Chavanchara to start because I thought that he was good against Stuttgart. He was causing problems against Stuttgart, certainly in the first half, posting up to his man and trying to turn him. The guy that he was playing against, the Stuttgart player that he was playing against, is an absolute man mountain, and he was having his way with him for a lot of the game. And I thought up against the likes of Rocky Bashiri et al., he could maybe have his way with him as well and maybe force the defenders into a mistake. Couple of moments in the first half where at the game I thought that he was being fouled. Maybe that wasn't the case watching it on the TV or wherever you were watching. Maybe he was falling over too easily. He scuffs that shot that Yang makes for him that he really should be doing better with. But I think some of the criticism was over the top yesterday when I think the whole team was poor. The striker's obviously going to get it, but yeah, it's a weird one because I thought that Celtic were carving out opportunities. Tenecti in particular, that for me is the main issue with the subs yesterday. That was baffling for me. Okay. I thought Tenecti was having his way with the fullback, and then he was taken off. The thing is,
though, he's played 70 minutes at that point. You're maybe looking to freshen things up. I understand that. Listen, I don't think any of this is ideal at the moment. It's kind of my argument. I don't think there was any perfect solution or route to victory yesterday. Partly because of the sending off, Ryan, Austin Trusty, it's just a lapse in judgment and concentration. I don't know what he's thinking there in that moment, knowing that what scrutiny is on players these days with VAR. Yes, the referee on the field might look at that as kind of maybe a coming together that he might just kind of hand wave away, but VAR specifically looking for rule infringements in these areas, in the penalty box, etc., and it was a rule infringement. You know, he hits the guy's arm. You know, it's considered violent conduct by the letter of the law. A silly moment from Austin Trusty, a player who should know better, who has more experience to know better, that not only left Celtic short yesterday, but leaves Celtic significantly short, I think, for this trip to Ibrox next week.
Absolutely, he's playing 90 minutes in Stuttgart, that's for sure, because he's not playing next Sunday against Rangers. He's suspended. He gives, in this case, he gives VAR a decision to make there in terms of, you know, and you can't hide from VAR, certainly in those sorts of situations where they're looking for infringement. I don't think he can have too many complaints. I know people are moaning about it online, saying it's never a red. You know what, it clearly is a red if they've given it.
You know what it is, Ryan, is that and there's a comment here, Seamus Gallagher saying it's handbags, John, and I get that. For me, it's a strange one because it feels like a nothing moment. It's of no consequence. I think I think Jamie McGrath makes a bit more of it than he should. Mm-hmm. But my argument is, we know the context of where football is now, and we know that these rules are scrutinised to the nth degree, especially with VAR, especially in the penalty area. And so to do that, and being a professional footballer, remember, they should be well aware of this and they understand the situation with VR, and that's why it's so frustrating. So yeah, I do think it's a silly thing, but I also think that Trusty should have known better in that situation for me. Mm-hmm.
Especially someone that's been in the limelight, a completely different scenario, I understand it, but somebody that's been in the limelight so recently with VAR, surely you just keep yourself out of any nonsense, especially at your own team's corner. You know, this is a chance for Celtic to attack. Celtic were down to 10 men taking the corner. It was a truly wild situation. It's brainless. It's brainless from Austin Trusty. And at the game, he'd already made his way halfway up the pitch by the time the referee had went to the monitor. So he kind of knew that his race was run. He knew that he was getting sent off at that point, which goes to show you that he's probably thinking to himself, why have I done that? Why have I put myself in that situation? And more importantly, why have I put my team in that situation when they're chasing a winner? All of a sudden, the narrative changes completely, and Hibs do eventually go and get that goal.
Natalie McMullen saying, John, we should have got a penalty with Liam Scales getting pulled with a Hibernian guy. Yeah, he did get his shirt pulled, and I actually agree. I think it should have been a penalty. I think it's a bit. I don't understand why it wasn't given as a penalty. I think there's a clear angle that shows the force of the tug on the shirt. And the referee told Martin O'Neill after the game that it was to do with the length of time that he was holding, which seems absurd, surely, if it's a forceful enough tug to unbalance a player as they're running to try and meet a ball at a corner. That should be given as a penalty. It was a penalty for me. This is where I find so much frustration with VAR. I don't like VAR. I've never liked it. Whether the decision goes for or against Celtic, I don't like VAR and how it's implemented in Scotland. I think John McGinn made interesting comments during the week about how it's used here. I don't think the technology is advanced enough for it to be of a major benefit in Scottish football, frankly. I know people disagree. I know some people think it's had more net benefit than detriment to Celtic and Scottish football in general, but I think if you're going to implement it, I think you need more cameras in the stadium. I think you need a higher quality of camera, and I'm not seeing it with VAR. I consistently find frustrations with it. There's been inconsistencies all season, and it's not just Celtic having complaints with it. It's basically the entire league, Ryan. And I don't know why clubs continue to pay for it. If it was me, I'd be like, save your money, lads. We'll wait for this technology to get better in 10 years. Don't mind some of the offside stuff to an extent. But again, with the quality of the picture, sometimes you're getting into pixels and where the line's drawn. In the Premier League, in European competition, it's far more advanced. The better cameras, better technology, semi-automated offsides, etc. It's a different thing. And maybe it will move in that direction with Scotland, but it doesn't seem to be doing any more anytime soon. Sorry to go on a bit of a VAR rant there, Ryan, but the question or the comment was initially Celtic should have had a penalty for the tug on Liam Scales. How did you view the incident?
Stonewaller, absolute Stonewaller for me. That should be given. I can't believe that it wasn't given. And I was saying to the people around me in the stadium, I was like, Celtic get this penalty, they need to take it because it's their only chance at really winning this game, in my opinion, with the way it was 10 v 11. Hibs are going to attack, so Celtic needed to put the ball in the back of the net and then hope to defend for the rest of the game, because I thought that there'd be a little bit of an onslaught in Hibs, and Hibs would maybe smell blood with the fact that Celtic were down to 10 men. I was waiting for it to be given. I was that sure. I saw Liam Scales going down. I saw it happening as it happened live. You know, I was assuming that it was going to be given, and then inexplicably, once the decision is made on the screen, it says that the contact happened outside the box, which I'm hoping is a massive typo on someone's part, because it was about 3-4 yards inside the box. There's no doubt that it's in the box. I think that was maybe more down to whoever controls the graphics at Celtic Park. Maybe clicked the wrong one. I would hope that's the case, because if not, it's a bit of a howler. But I think it was a howler anyway from the referee and the VAR. The tug is clear. The pull is definitely there in the shirt. That happens anywhere else on the pitch, that's a foul and a yellow card if Celtic are attacking, or if the other team are attacking. I don't understand why it changes all of us. I don't understand why the criteria heightens once it happens in the box. That's a foul anywhere else on the pitch. Don't understand why it wasn't given in the box.
Frustrating. David Bradley saying, John, do you think Nygren is a lazy player? I do. David, if you've watched these videos or you watch me any sort of consistency, you'll know I'm not that impolite. I wouldn't characterise Benjamin Nygren as lazy. I don't, just personally, that's just not me. And fair play for you thinking so. What I would say about Benjamin Nygren is I don't think he's a midfielder. I think he's an attacking player. I think we've done coverage before. We talked to youth coaches and etc. He made his breakthrough as a youth player, as a striker. I don't know if he's an outright striker either. He looks like one of those players that plays just off the striker. I think relying on him to be any sort of combative, kind of pressing or defensive, any kind of defensive offering at all, really, from Benjamin Nygren, I just don't think is his game. So I don't think he's lazy. I just don't think that's how he functions as a footballer. I think his goal scoring this season's been remarkable. And if you take away Benjamin Nygren's 18 goals, where are Celtic this season? That's where I am with it. So I think he's a goal scorer. I think he's a good attacking threat, but he's not a midfielder for me, Ryan.
Yeah, and Celtic need a combative midfielder, because that midfield is so easy to play against at the moment. You look at the winner, you watch the winner again, how easy it is for Hibs to go through Celtic's midfield. They're already on the back foot, looking to defend. You know, there's nobody. I was saying this on the way home from the game yesterday. I was like, Celtic need a midfielder that's going to take one for the team and take a player out there and take the yellow card. They don't have players that make professional fouls. It seems as if whenever the opposition team gets the ball in their own half and are looking to play it forward, you think, well, they might get a shot away because none of the midfield are going to take a player down. Granted, Cal McGregor can do that sometimes, but I'm looking at the other players as well to potentially take one for the team and put a fire out before it gets to Kasper Schmeichel or it gets to the defence. I just think that the midfield is non-combative at the moment, and it badly needs that. It needs some physicality, it needs some strength. I do think, and he divides opinion, he completely divides opinion. I understand that due to the price tag as well. I think that Celtic are missing Arne Engels in the midfield too. He was taken off injured in the first half against Livingston, and you saw, not the downgrade, you saw maybe the downgrade in Celtic's performance in the second half of that game. Yes, they managed to go on and win it. You saw the downgrade in performance from the players that came into the team against Kilmarnock, and then they struggled against Stuttgart and they struggled against Hibs in the midfield. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think Celtic are missing Engels' quality, and I know he divides opinion, but I think he brings a lot to the team and he enables other players to be better as well, and I think they're suffering as a result of his injury. You know, I hope he can come back as quick as possible. But the end of March, where could Celtic be at the end of March when Arne Engels comes back? It's a worrying thought to me.
Yeah, Celtic are at this crossroads now where, like, the next week could be the making of Celtic, but I think I've been saying that for quite a long time. You know, it could equally be the end of the road for Celtic and their ambitions and multiple competitions over the next fortnight or so. And if you look at the evidence, I mean, might argue it's more likely than not on that side of things. Mark Fairfield asking, and this is a decent question, John, have you ever seen a weaker Celtic? My first Celtic season as a supporter was the Hampden season, so I go back to the mid-90s, and obviously as a child you don't really put two and two together with regard to the quality of a team. I'm sure I've seen some pretty poor Celtic teams. My idol during those years was John Collins. Then I saw the Tommy Burns team, and there was all that excitement. The Wim Janssen team, of course, stopping 10 in a row. And then that kind of took a couple of years, but transitioned into the Martin O'Neill years, a very, very strong Celtic team. And since then, I don't think I've seen a worse kind of situation at Celtic than I see this season. And again, I'm not trying to say that to pile on to the misery that everyone's feeling. I just can't remember a time where so much has gone so wrong, and Celtic are in such a difficult place both in the short and medium term, but also looking to the long term and looking to the summer as well. I think the squad's in such a terrible, terrible shape at the moment. Celtic's best functioning player right now is probably Julian Araujo, and he's a loan player from Bournemouth that we don't have an option to buy, which tells its own story, you know. So, I think this probably is the worst Celtic season or team that I've experienced in my lifetime. I know other people might feel differently. Obviously, the COVID season was terrible. The Tony Mowbray season was terrible, Ryan.
Yeah.
But this is ranking highly for a lot of people. I think whether you put it 1, 2, or 3, I think it's undoubtedly in the top 3 worst Celtic seasons that I've ever seen. So, take that as you will.
You've named the top 3 or the bottom 3, or whatever you want to call it, when it comes to Celtic teams for me this season. The COVID season, which had so many other outside factors, of course, that's there's always an asterisk next to that. People say that anyway about that season, but there's certainly an asterisk next to that with the way that played out. And then the Tony Mowbray season, which was my first season as a season ticket holder. I've had my ticket since 2009, 2010. Celtic were weak then, and they're weak now. And you're seeing the similarities between the two. Just really, really... I just don't have a lot of belief in this team at the moment. And I've had ups and downs where, maybe Celtic are rallying. I haven't seen too many of the same patterns emerging when it comes to Celtic. Poor results, unsustainable results. Late winners. Granted, they're great against Livingston and Kilmarnock, but you look at that. You look at those. Look at the bigger picture. Celtic are struggling against the bottom teams in the league. Whenever a better team come to town, they'll fancy themselves against it. And then the table, I've only looked at it once since full time yesterday. It does not make for good reading, and that's even just now. I think over the past month, 2 months, the table has been bad, but it could be worse. Now it feels like other teams are catching up or pushing ahead. I look at Motherwell. I look at the informed team in Scotland just now.
There was a comment here that I was going to bring in anyway, Ryan. It's from Mo Knotts. This'll sour your Monday morning coffee. Boys, accept our mediocrity and the pain subsides. We'll finish third, even fourth. Look, I'm not here to doomsay Celtic's season to say Celtic are definitely going to finish fourth, but you can't rule it out, Ryan, and that's depressing in itself.
Yeah, it could happen. It really could happen at this moment in time. I'm looking at the trajectory of Celtic and I'm looking at the trajectory of Motherwell. Motherwell are a team on the up, playing under a really good young man who's making his way through. He's really making an impression at Fir Park. Look at Saturday night. It doesn't happen often. The likes of Motherwell beating another team in the Scottish Premiership 5-0 with 5 different goal scorers. They've got goals all over the park. That's the next home game for Celtic, is against Motherwell at home. And even in the early embers of the season, Motherwell still gave Celtic a hell of a game back in that, and it took a late goal from Daiza Maeda. I've got a little bit of trepidation when it comes to that one because Motherwell are more comfortable with what they're bringing to the fold now than what they were back then. But that's an issue for 3 weeks down the line. Celtic have got to focus on, unfortunately they've got to focus on the Stuttgart game, which is a complete hindrance at this moment in time, and then they've got the Glasgow Derby against Rangers. It is the game against Stuttgart's a complete hindrance to everything at the moment, and it's unwanted distraction, but it's Europe and it's horrible to be in this, but that's just how I feel. That's just how I feel about Europe at the moment, and Celtic, to be honest. It's been a really grueling and humbling season, I think, for a lot of people.
Any positivity out there? Anyone? I'm not trying to force it, but if anyone does genuinely does see a silver lining, does see a glint of hope for Celtic and Celtic supporters ahead, please let me know in the chat, and I will try and highlight it, because we like to balance these things sometimes. I think the circumstances dictate that the balance is even the balance, even in a most optimistic scenario, say Celtic win the majority of the games that they have left, say they don't lose until the end of the season, which I don't even know is likely, but say they don't lose until the end of the season, there's still scenarios there, even in that best case scenario for Celtic, that Celtic still do not win this league, just based on what has occurred so far already. The damage was done arguably before Matt O'Neill came back to take his third spell as Celtic manager. He had that interim spell. Yep. A lot of damage had been done up to that point, but it just worsened from there. And when Matt O'Neill came back, there's an argument to say that it was maybe never salvageable. I think if it was going to be salvageable, I think it really needed players that were recruited in the winter window to be high impact players that changed the complex of the Celtic team. And I'm talking specifically on that right wing, and I just don't think we quite needed it. We quite got that, sorry. What did you think of Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain yesterday, Ryan, is the question from the chat at the moment?
Some nice touches here and there, but he faded and was taken off after an hour. There was a nice one moment in particular, a nice sort of disguised pass. I thought Celtic was going to get Celtic into a really decent position. It wasn't all perfect. I thought there was a couple of times where he could have lost the ball after spending too much time in possession. I think he'll quickly figure out that he won't have that time on the ball to dictate. He's going to have to get the ball out of his feet quicker. He faded. It didn't really add much of note in the second half, and he was taken off. I was excited to see him from the starting position. I thought there was a couple of nice moments in the first half, but yeah, there was just, again, even just talking about this game, just an odd game to touch upon, because I thought there was some nice moments from Celtic, but in the end, that 20 minutes of madness towards the end completely cost them the red card, and then the late concession of a goal. But Oxlade-Chamberlain, He can't play on Thursday. Will he play at Ibrox on Sunday? That's the question.
I would
I'm
say
not really
that
sure
he does.
at the moment.
I think again, I'm thinking about the Ibrox team, and that's why I said I didn't really have much issue with the team yesterday. I don't know if I see a different team playing at Ibrox than we did play against Hibs. And that's where the Celtic squad is right now. And I think Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain does start with Callum McGregor, and that's where we are at the moment. I think anyone expecting Paulo Bernardo to come onto the game or Luke McCowan to come onto the game, I don't think that's based on any evidence so far. People asking about formation changes, maybe to a 4-4-2, Ryan. Again, it seems quite speculative. I'm willing to try anything, but all I'm saying is, if you say one of the strengths that Martin O'Neill has brought to Celtic is a sense of stability, that was his first domestic defeat yesterday. I think that, but Celtic aren't hitting the heights under Martin O'Neill. Yes, they have been scraping by and performances have been poor, but there has been a sense of stability, at least I would suggest, about the results and the general direction of travel with Celtic this season. Maybe if you start to change formations, that stability goes, but then there's higher upside as well. I don't know the answer. I wish I did. I wish I could tell people that I did, but I'm not going to try and fool people that I do. Des Harkin saying, the sun comes up tomorrow, the best I can do right now. John, fair play, Des. And listen, that's how I felt this morning. I was pretty down about yesterday. I was worse on Friday after Stuttgart. I don't know why. I think it was maybe just all the context around that game, and I felt it was like an encapsulation of everything going wrong at Celtic, like from board level down to the team and the fans and everything. It just felt all too toxic for me. As I said, I was scunnered on Friday. I'm not feeling like that today. I'm feeling probably how Liam Devine is. He says reality is balance, reality is the club, and completely gubbed from top to bottom. That's kind of where I am right now. Mm-hmm. I'm feeling the reality of Celtic right now. The reality isn't good, but when you know the reality, you can kind of deal with it better. I don't have any, because my hope is kind of eroded, Ryan, I don't have any kind of false expectations about what's ahead now. I feel like anything positive now from this season is a bonus almost.
Without a doubt, I completely agree with you, and I'm on the exact same boat as you, John. I completely agree. I have no hope for this season, unfortunately. So any hope that I do get is a bonus. And I try and be as optimistic as I can on these morning briefings, but I've got to be realistic as well and consistent with my own opinion. I felt like that for a good while. I felt like the results have been unsustainable, the late winners. And it came home to roost yesterday. The Celtic's weaknesses were once again showing up. They were showing up at home. Poor result. I didn't think Hibs were that great in the game, but they took their opportunity at the end when it came to them. It was a good finish by the player, and they got their 3 points and their first win at Celtic Park in 16 years, I believe. That's quite damning in its own right. But I'm
just a question on that second goal, that second Hibs goal, Ryan. McGregor poor for that. Dylan Hound 74 saying this is an issue. Of course, Celtic terrible at defending counter-attacks and seem to be a myth in creating their own counter-attacks at the moment. No cutting edge there at all. Callum McGregor can't escape any of the criticism. A large part of the reason why the midfield isn't functioning very well is because Callum McGregor's performance this season has been poor, and he's been so, again, I use the word stable, but he's been so stable for Celtic for a long time. But this season, a regression there, both defensively and in attack. It's hard to see what McGregor's offering at the moment either. And again, that I don't like saying that, Ryan. Obviously, I don't like saying that. He's won so much at Celtic. He's done so much for Celtic, but McGregor isn't getting. We're not getting much out of McGregor at the moment. That's kind of what I'm saying.
No. I actually thought he was one of the better players on Thursday night, to be honest. I thought he was better on Thursday, but he wasn't at his authoritative best yesterday against Hibs, and that was clear. And I think Celtic have had trouble in back lines and they've had trouble in forward lines in different seasons, but they've always had that midfield that they can rely upon to get results, to pull them through, to have somebody like Callum McGregor before him, maybe Scott Brown and other players have been in there in years gone by. The midfield's a real problem area for me at the moment this season in the actual game. I know they get goals from Benjamin Nigrim, but in terms of their overall play, what we're getting from Rio Hatate at the moment, what we're getting from Benjamin Negron out with those goals, what we're getting from Callum McGregor, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain trying to work his way into the side, guys on the bench, Paulo Bernardo starting one game and then not featuring at all in the next one. It's a problem area for me, and with the already obvious problem areas at the back and at the front, there's just so many issues popping up at the same time that it's difficult to balance that. It's difficult to balance all of that out. It just seems as if there's a lot of negatives all over the team. I wish I could come on here and be more positive today, but it's just how I'm feeling at the moment. I'm just not feeling good about the way Celtic's going. And I just look at that league table. Celtic are third in February. Why should we be feeling good about ourselves?
We shouldn't.
We're in third place.
No, and there's no point in forcing it. Again, this is really the only optimism that I'm seeing in the live chat and how I feel too. I'm always optimistic. Rangers are not great, as we saw at Livy, and Hearts have had loads of hard games as well. You never know, we may hit form. Again, this season, it just comes back to this repeated thing of this might happen, and rarely has it actually happened. Listen, I said this even after all those last minute goals, they did feel good at the time, but when you looked at that run, those were they're the three worst teams in the Scottish top flight at the moment. Now, I know St Mirren are on a bad run of form as well, but like Kilmarnock, Dundee, Livingston, they're not great sides at the moment. They're in the bottom six. Celtic's record against the top six is bad as well. So, yeah, sorry everyone. Again, we don't like just moaning about Celtic for 40 minutes, but hopefully we've done so with a bit of cheer anyway. I've appreciated everyone's messages in the live chat. I appreciate the conversation and the topics discussed and the questions and the interaction. As always, truly, truly appreciate it. Makes the shows go much smoother and better. And yeah, we'll see how the rest of the week transpires. As Ryan said earlier, we do have a game against Stuttgart, unfortunately. That does seem like a massive distraction at the moment. But yeah, we'll have plenty more coverage on the channel. We've got the weekly podcast with Hamish coming up, and we've got a chat about Bodo Glimt and kind of their season and how they're performing in Europe this season as well, because I think when you think about Celtic in the context of punching above your weight in Europe, I don't think there's any better example than Bodo Glimt this season. So we've got a chat about them coming up on the channel as well. Plenty to go up on the website too, celticway.co.uk. So if you want to subscribe there, or you want to subscribe on the YouTube channel, please consider doing so. Subscriptions on the website are a massive help to us, a massive help to what we do on a daily basis, even with all the free stuff that we do. But even just a subscription, subscribing to the channel, which is totally free, would be fantastic as well. And always comments, interaction, it all helps everyone. So again, we appreciate you joining us live. Apologies for the lengthy spiel at the end here. Any final thoughts before we head off, Ryan?
Yeah, I think I've said everything that I've
Okay.
I've thought of.
You've got it off your chest.
That's just I used today as a bit of a I wouldn't go as far to say as a therapy session, but I feel a little bit better than when I started this podcast. So that's something, at least. I'm going to end with that positive. I feel a little bit better than what I did before I came on here. So I'm going to take that rather selfishly. I'm going to take that heading off today.
Fair play to you, Ryan. Fair play to everyone in the live chat. And as I say, we'll see you again next time on the Celtic Way.